So good morning, everybody. My name is Dylan Seidner. I am an air pollution specialist at the California Air Resources Board. I'm going to be kicking off our presentation and our event today. So thank you very much for making the trek out here, attending this event in person. And additionally, we're live streaming this event today as well, too. So you'll see a lot of microphones in the room, camera in the back of the room, lots of different TV displays here. So be aware that we're broadcasting this event today live so that everybody else who couldn't make it here today could see the presentations. So thank you for being here in person, though. There's some additional benefits for being here in person today. Just wanted to go over the agenda, explain the event to folks. So if you've never been to one of these events before, in this room, we're offering presentations from now until 1 p.m. today. And I would say if you have specific topics that you're interested in, show up for that presentation in this room. Maybe if it's something you're interested in, come on down, listen to the presentation. But if not, perfect chance to step out, grab some coffee, grab a snack, or participate in some of our one-on-one meetings and sessions in the other room. So lots of different options today for you to participate. And lots of different topics that we're going to be covering here today. So just a quick overview of the agenda. We're getting started here at 9. We're going to do some more of the welcome and introductions and orientation. The major topics we're going to cover today are going to be clean truck check. I'm going to be giving that first presentation. We'll also go over the compliance support aspects of clean truck check. After that, we're going to have our panel up here on stage. They're going to be talking about zero-emission heavy-duty fleets and some discussion from some different members of folks who are involved with heavy-duty fleets and zero emissions. We'll have a break after that, go into funding after that break. We'll have a presentation specifically set for state and local governments, for government entities, and some of the specific requirements for government entities. And then at the end of the day, we'll close out with our section on off-road equipment and the zero-emission forklift program, and then some closing remarks and evaluations. And all throughout the day, if you're here in person, we're offering one-on-one assistance. And I would say that's probably the reason that most folks attend in person. So the way that works today is if you want to talk to somebody about any of those topics, go head over to our other room that's to my left, sign up for a time slot, show up for your appointment, and you will get direct assistance if you have questions on a database, questions about incentives, questions about enforcement. We have pretty much all our most technical staff and our experts who work in those programs here to answer those questions for you. So you should get an answer to most of your questions here today. There's one other thing that's going on today, and I forgot to mention it. In our parking lot, we also have clean truck check testing going on today. So that is being offered at no cost to folks who signed up in advance. And once we have all those appointments taken care of, we can also offer clean truck check testing to any walk-ups as well, too. So if you folks do have a vehicle here today that needs a clean truck check test, you have a vehicle nearby that maybe you want to bring by, please talk to somebody here and we will try to arrange additional appointments. We try to get one truck from one person first, and then we can do additionals if we have more time today to facilitate that. One other note for folks in the room, please quick reminder that we are broadcasting this, so if you could please mute your cell phones, it'll reduce the amount of interruptions we have here today, especially on our live stream broadcast. Appreciate it. Okay, so I'm going to read some information here for our language interpretation today. So first, Spanish interpretation is being provided. If attendees joining us today would like to listen to today's presentation in Spanish, please go to the interpretation icon in your meeting or webinar controls if you're online. You will then see language channels, select Spanish, and optional, you can mute the original audio to listen to the interpreted language only. A note, in order to use language interpretation features, attendees must download the Zoom application on their desktop, smartphone, or tablet. And for technical or language interpretation assistance, email Courtney Jin at arb.ca.gov. For those of you in the room, if you need any additional interpretation assistance, please see Courtney there in the back if you could raise your hand, and she can get you in-room language interpretation assistance. One more slide for the folks online. So language interpretation through Zoom, we have Punjabi interpretation being provided. If attendees joining us today would like to listen to today's presentation in Punjabi, please go to the interpretation icon in your meeting webinar controls. You will then see the language channels, select Punjabi, and as optional, mute the original audio to listen to the interpreted language only. In order to use the language interpretation feature, attendees must download the Zoom application on their desktop, smartphone, or tablet. And technical or language interpretation assistance, please email courtneychin@arb.ca.gov. I think that takes care of our translation information. Okay, some housekeeping for everybody here today. First, we will have question and answer sessions in our room after our presentations. However, I will say, if you have a specific question or you'd like to have a discussion, or maybe you have a comment about a program, the best place to do that type of work is going to be in our one-on-one table. Really, the question and answer sessions here today are going to be broadcast online, and we'd like to keep those questions and answers to the presentations only. So if you have a specific question about your fleet, your vehicle, some issue you've been having, maybe online, those questions are best directed to our one-on-one tables with our staff there. Secondly, today, we have an attendee survey. Everybody here today received a piece of paper. It's going to have our attendee survey information on here. If you'd like to fill it out in person and turn it in, you can turn it in to anybody who has a staff badge here today. Otherwise, you can scan the QR code and then provide your answers online. Should take just a couple minutes for you to do this. I personally take a look at survey information when it comes back, and we change our events and update them based upon your feedback. So I appreciate if you're able to do that here today. One other thing to point out about translation services is we have several staff here who are multilingual, and if you see them, they will have their badge with any additional languages that they speak on their badge. So if you need additional translation services in person, please look for folks who have a badge that has additional information about what other languages that they speak. Okay. Looks like everybody has a copy of their presentation deck, right? I'm seeing most folks here today have a copy of their presentation. Just a note for that is that it will not be posted or emailed just due to the nature of the materials here today. So please take one home with you. If you need an extra, it's entirely possible for you to grab one out where you picked one up earlier today. For our live stream folks online, hello, thanks for joining us. We will not be taking questions through the traditional aspects in Zoom. Please send your questions directly to the email address shown on screen, which is onestopevents@arb.ca.gov. And we will try to facilitate that question and answer in person. Okay, for the facilities here, we do have water available in the back of the room, both on the left and the right-hand side. Restrooms are outside and to the right and around the corner for the women's restroom. The hotel also offers food. There's a cafe out to our right outside of here, and there's a snacks and drinks location outside past the check-in area and to the left. So lots of options for folks to take a break, grab something to eat, grab something to drink. Our one-on-one tables, they will be staffed all day except for when that group is giving their presentation. So you'll have lots of time all throughout the day. Our staff will stay until 1 o'clock, and we'll stay even longer if folks are still here and still have questions. So please sign up for that one-on-one assistance, and we will stick around and make sure that your questions get answered. Okay, and as I said, we had that bilingual staff throughout the room here today and also in our one-on-one room. So definitely check in with those folks, especially if you're having a one-on-one conversation and may need some of that additional assistance for translation. Parking here is free. Just a note about the parking though is that the gate arms will only be open during certain times today. And if they aren't open when you're there and you're here at this event, you're more than welcome to use the help button on the gate, and they will facilitate an exit for you. Lift the gate arm up, you'll be able to leave whenever you need to. Here's a list of our one-on-one tables, which pretty well matches up to a lot of the presentations we have here today. And just to read through this list, we've got a trucker's reporting table, a table on clean truck check and CTC Viz, one on enforcement. We have folks from CARB and the South Coast Air District to talk about incentives that they have available for heavy-duty vehicles. We have the off-road diesel program, zero-emission forklift program, and we have a table set up for those of you who are representing a state or local government to discuss directly with some of our technical experts what some of those requirements are for government agencies. And this is just a big picture note for everybody here. Today's presentations are going to be very basic. They won't cover every single detail of these programs. So we have a list here of several other diesel regulatory programs that your fleet or vehicle may be subject to that we may not talk to all the details of today. So our goal here today is to get you the basics, answer your questions, and get you started on any programs that you may not know a lot about. For those of you who I talked to earlier who maybe know a lot about clean truck check, you've tested a lot of vehicles, you're going to hear a lot of information you probably already know today, but this is a great chance for you to talk to folks in the one-on-one section or to get more informational flyers or resources that we have outside our presentation room. Okay, so with that, let me start with our first presentation. And our first presentation is typically our largest audience, and that's for clean truck check. So kicking into this presentation, just to explain in a simple way, what's the easiest way to comply with clean truck check if we had to explain it to somebody who didn't know the program? We've got it broken down into 3 steps here. First step is going to be 1, to report your vehicles using our database, which is online, called CTC Viz. Second step is going to be to pay that fee online after you've entered that vehicle. Third step is to submit a passing emissions compliance test. We try to break it down easy here, and as I'm sure I've talked to some folks today, there are sometimes some hiccups in some of these steps, but we'll try to get to some of the details today and hopefully ensure that if you do have to sign up a new vehicle or you're just getting started with this program, that you'll have the basics to have a successful process. So some overview for folks in the room. First, what types of vehicles are regulated under clean truck check? Really, the types of vehicles we're talking about here are going to be non-gasoline and alternative heavy-duty vehicles over 14,000 pounds operating on California public roads and highways. So for that definition, a few things to point out. 1, when we're talking about non-gasoline and alternative fuel vehicles, it's typically diesel vehicles are the majority of those types of vehicles in this program. So mostly diesel, but also those other types of vehicles. This program does not apply to gasoline-powered trucks, vehicles at all. The other aspect that we've highlighted here on the page for you is that this applies to vehicles that are operating on California public roads and highways. So this program does not apply to vehicles that are maybe only operating on private property or only operating off-road in a situation that is not on a public road or a highway. And so some background on this program. It has a couple different aspects to it. The first is the emissions testing and reporting process, which kind of was what I talked about at the beginning, which is to sign up a vehicle, report that vehicle, and then get that vehicle tested throughout the year. However, this program has several other elements to it. The first one being that there is roadside monitoring and testing for high emissions vehicles. As you can see in our slide here on the top, we have an example of a roadside inspection. I've seen these happen all throughout the state of California. I've personally seen one in the neighborhood that I live in Sacramento. So they're occurring all throughout the state, typically in areas where there is a fair amount of heavy duty vehicle traffic. The second one here is roadside monitoring. That's the second picture on the bottom. And in that instance, we have several stations set up throughout California in areas with heavy duty truck traffic, typically paired up with truck check stations or weigh stations, where as vehicles roll through the weigh station, they're checked in terms of what the emissions are, and then their license plate is checked as well too. We'll go into that a bit more in our next presentation, but just to say that we do have folks out in the field who are doing inspections and monitoring for both in-state and out-of-state truck traffic as it comes into California. The last point of compliance here is that if you are a truck owner and you're doing a lot of work with either freight contractors, seaports, or rail yards, you're visiting these locations, there are additional compliance verification requirements if you're visiting those places or if you're contracting out fleets. The idea being that if you visit a seaport or a rail yard, you need a clean truck check compliant truck to visit those locations. Oftentimes, a non-compliant vehicle will be deferred or requested to actually come back when they're compliant. Moving on. So some example regulated vehicles. Even though this program is called Clean Truck Check, just to make it clear, it's not only trucks that are in this program. So we've got a couple different examples here. Motorhomes are still considered part of the Clean Truck Check program if they're over 14,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating and if they're operating on roads and highways. Some other examples we've got here are cargo vans, tow trucks, any vehicles that may be owned by a government. If you have an exempt plated vehicle, SC plated vehicles also are required to comply with Clean Truck Check, and even personal vehicles that are over that gross vehicle weight rating and have the powertrain that is diesel, hybrid, or alternative fuel, and if they're being operated on California roads. Okay, so remember, step one in our process was to report your vehicles, and we've got the website up here for you. This is the main page, I would say, for any questions or any follow-up on Clean Truck Check. It's called cleantruckcheck.arb.ca.gov. And that's where, if you're getting started with this program, you can create and authenticate an account and then enter your fleet and vehicle info and make your first payment online. One note on this slide, I wanted to show you folks what it looks like when you look at the web page. For those of you who are using this page a lot, you'll notice that this page has changed within the last month. So this is a bit out of date, what I'm showing you on screen. But just so you're aware, there is a login and a registration button on the page. The page layout has changed a bit, but there are still all of these resources that are there available for you. Things like frequently asked questions, information on how to become a Clean Truck Check certified tester, a list of the certified devices that are available for Clean Truck Check testing, and other what we would consider key pieces of information that see a lot of traffic from folks who are in this program. The other note for this page is that we have now launched a compliance check tool as well, too. So if you're curious if your vehicle or someone else's vehicle is compliant, you can now run a compliance check using a vehicle's VIN information. And additionally, we have the option to search for fleets, so you can check to see if a fleet is compliant throughout the whole fleet as well too. So new compliance checks are available online if you're hiring vehicles or if you want to run a check on your own vehicle or your own fleet. So we have some reporting requirements when you're first getting started with Clean Truck Check. The first consideration is, one, that most of the information in Clean Truck Check is tied from the vehicle's VIN information to the California DMV. It's the main way that we check certification for Clean Truck Check with Clean Truck Check related registration information. So for those of you in the room who may have experienced this, you will find out that if you have a vehicle that is non-compliant in Clean Truck Check, the registration will be put on hold. And the next time you'll try to check registration renewal, you may run into issues until that truck is made compliant. From that respect, similar to the DMV, once you receive a vehicle and start operating it, you want to get that vehicle entered into Clean Truck Check as soon as possible. So either if you're selling a vehicle, purchasing a vehicle, please make sure that you check your account, make those changes in your account as soon as possible when you receive or when you dispose of the vehicle. And similar to the DMV, we have a 30-day request on a lot of this information. So as soon as you make that transfer of a vehicle, sell it, purchase it, make sure you double check this information. And just to show folks what this looks like when you're online, here's some of the key information that you'd have to put in to register a vehicle in Clean Truck Check. Typically, this type of information is available to most folks in their DMV registration. You may have to have a couple other pieces of information, but really most of it should be available with the registration information and some basic info that you or your business may have. Once you've got everything input, step 2 is to pay the compliance fee. And a couple things to know about that compliance fee. One, it's a per vehicle, per year compliance fee. 2, that compliance fee adjusts, and it can adjust up or down. Typically, it will adjust up a few cents or $1 or so a year, but it adjusts with the California Consumer Price Index. Payments for Clean Truck Check also, we don't accept cash or check, so all payments have to be online through our system, and they have to be either credit card, debit card, or e-check. And just to show folks what this would look like when you're online, so the current 2025 fee, as you can see here, is $31.18 per vehicle for the 2025 year. And one other note to show folks who may be paying either by e-check or by credit card, just to note that there is a 2.99% fee that will be charged for credit cards, which is pretty common. This will go directly back to cover the processing fees that we have for processing credit cards. Very common for other DMV transactions, working with credit cards with other government agencies. So the recommendation is if you'd like to save that fee to use the e-check process, which doesn't have that same fee. Okay, once the vehicle is paid and you have a compliant test on record, 2 things happen. 1, the status is changed to compliant for the vehicle in CTC Viz. And 2, anybody should be able to go and check that vehicle's compliance status either through our check portal or you can print out a copy of compliance certification. This is a relic from maybe our older version of CTC Viz because we didn't have that portal that allowed compliance checks, but lots of folks say they like to keep a copy of this with them or use it if they have to prove compliance or show compliance to maybe a hiring contractor or a hiring business. So just a secondary piece of evidence that you can have to show compliance once you complete the payment of fees and get your first compliant check. We've got resources available for you to train up on how to use CTC Viz. For those of you who are here in the room and have access to your slides, you can scan that QR code or check the URL there at the bottom. Getting to the last step in the process, emissions compliance testing. Most vehicles are going to have a semi-annual compliance test, so that's twice a year. In most cases, you're going to have a first deadline that is tied directly to the DMV registration due date. The second deadline is going to be 6 months after that DMV registration due date, and that's when the second test will be due. To note, we can receive tests up to 90 days ahead of your deadline. So for example, if you had a January 1st deadline in 2025 in this year, you could have started testing as early as October of 2024 and then submit that test anytime between October and January. The reason we do this is kind of twofold. One, gives you the flexibility of testing anywhere in that 90-day time period to work with your schedule. Two, if you run into any issues and you have a non-passing test, possibly it's due to maintenance issues, requires parts, requires a fix that may take that period of time, possibly longer. It allows you to get that fix sorted out. And additionally, if you're unable to get the vehicle sorted or fixed in time, it gives you time to contact us to let us know that you're still working on the issue. So that flexibility of those 90 days is there for you to use it. We do not recommend trying to get everything sorted on your last deadline day, right? Use that 90 days as a flexible timeline to get things figured out for your vehicles. The other note on here for you is that once you sign up with CTC Viz, you'll get email updates flagging which vehicles or the number of vehicles in your account that have upcoming tests as well. So that's the only notice you're going to get from us is going to be by email. Otherwise, it's up to you to keep track of registration timelines and testing timelines on your own. So, there's other forms of testing schedules, and this one is an annual testing schedule. This applies to personal motorhomes and agricultural vehicles that are registered in California. These two types of vehicles have a once-a-year emissions compliance testing, and that deadline is based on the vehicle's DMV registration date. So that's one test a year. You can still test that 90 days before that test is due. And you still have that single compliance fee as well. On to the testing methods. So we'll give you some details here on both the test methods, the equipment, and how to get that done. There's two major types of test methods in this program. The first one is for most vehicles on the road, I would say, 2013 and newer diesel or diesel hybrids. In those situations, the testing process is to use a certified clean truck check device to scan the onboard diagnostic data of the vehicle. Probably the most common form of testing that we have. The second option for those of you with older vehicles, and those are typically 2012 and older vehicles, that form of testing is by opacity testing of SAE J1667. It's a specific type of opacity test, and that gets paired up along with a visual inspection of the vehicle's emissions control equipment. There are some outliers here for 2017 and older alternative fuel vehicles. It's just a visual inspection. So no need to actually have that opacity test. There's one other option here, and we'll go into this maybe a little bit more later, but we also have continuously connected OBD devices that can provide testing at intervals that can be set up by you and the manufacturer. And in those cases, a tester doesn't even need to be involved. That equipment actually performs the test for you and submits it for you. So we'll go into those a little bit later. Generally speaking, your tests have to be performed by a clean truck check credentialed tester. So that means that only a credentialed tester can submit the test for you. They'll do the testing, they'll submit the test, and presumably if you're paying the fee to that tester, that they are then responsible for both completing the test and ensuring that the upload is accurate and correct. If you're looking to find a tester, we have provided a list online of 4 higher credentialed testers. These are folks who at initial credentialing have indicated that they will accept business from the general public to provide testing at a fee. And I know in some cases that may change online. So please use this as just a resource to confirm and check with folks and maybe shop around in your area if you're looking for folks in your area to provide a test. The other aspect of this is that anybody can become a credentialed tester. You can complete a training online and an exam at arb.ca.gov/CTC tester. There, you'll go through a training process and complete an exam. Should take a couple hours. And once you complete that process, You're a credentialed tester, and once you have access to CTC approved equipment, you can then perform emissions tests on your own. So it's a free process to get trained up and become a tester. I've completed the training myself. It's a couple-hour process to watch the videos and then complete the exam and pass the exam. So anybody can do it here. And that said, also, for higher credentialed testers, we personally at the Air Board don't require a set fee for testing. So as you folks have probably seen, that fee varies pretty wildly from folks out there in public, right? So it could be anything from free, like we're offering today, free testing, on the way up to, we've seen all sorts of different numbers out there. It's going to depend on the vehicle type, of course. Is the tester coming to you? A ton of different factors. So we would suggest that if you are looking for a tester, to take a look at our public list and then shop around a little bit for a tester that meets your needs, both in terms of pricing, quality, ability to come to you, show up to their business, whatever you need to make sure that you get your test completed. Okay, and the last thing that I did mention previously was that no credentialed tester is necessary when you use an approved continuously connected telematics device. So for those of you who are using some of the bigger brand telematics services on the market, several of them are certified to perform a clean truck check test for you while that device is connected and taking other telematics data. And just to show you folks what this looks like, so if you are looking for your credentialed tester, this is what our search page looks like. We've got testers all over California, all throughout the state. We have testers who are in other states. I believe we even have testers who are in Puerto Rico and Canada and Mexico as well too. So anybody, anywhere could become a clean truck check tester and make that available as a service anywhere. So I mentioned testing devices have to be CARB approved for a compliance test. That list of testing devices that are approved are available on our website, and we add new ones as we receive information from vendors about what new devices are on the market and when they need to get them certified from us. So there's different devices, new ones are popping up all the time. Same for the recommendation for clean truck check testers. If you're looking to purchase a device, I would say take a look at our approved list, see what's out there, contact those manufacturers and see what works best for you, both in terms of usability and pricing. There's a lot of different options out there. Okay, we're wrapping this up. So first, thanks for listening here today. I appreciate it. Even though Clean Truck Check has been ongoing for several years, obviously we still haven't talked to every person. We still hear folks who may not be aware of it, and we're still trying to work through the issues that you may be having while you're trying to maintain a compliant vehicle on the road. So thank you for listening today, and thank you for taking the information you're learning today and sharing it with other folks out there who may need that additional piece of assistance. And maybe you learn that detail here today. We've tried to do as much outreach as possible. We've sent hundreds of thousands of postcards throughout the state to registered vehicle owners who may have a vehicle that needs to comply. We've met at all sorts of different events with folks from industry organizations and manufacturers and different industry groups. Of course, we've got tons of different trainings online, but of course, we're still working to make sure everybody gets the knowledge they need to figure this out. So that's why you're here today, and that's why we have our one-on-one assistance and the ability to ask questions here today to get things resolved. So with that wraps up our Clean Truck Check presentation. A couple key resources for you to be aware of, though. Most of our troubleshooting question and answer sessions, I would say, please use the Clean Truck Check email address, which is here on screen. That is probably the most accurate form of customer service that you can get. And typically the response time is within 1 to 2 days. You'll receive a response that'll be in writing and hopefully be clear enough for you to follow to get your resolution to your issue. Additionally, we've got the main page for Clean Truck Check. The URL is there on screen. And if you're looking for more information about the program's history, how it got started, what sort of research, and what the reasons were for this program, we've also got the Clean Truck Check program information there at the bottom. Okay, some common questions that we see in Clean Truck Check. These are probably the top couple questions. So first, one, will I be notified if I have a test? I covered this earlier, but the answer is yes. You're going to get an email with your account summary information. It may not have all the details of all the VINs, but it will tell you when vehicles are upcoming to actually need a test. Second, the question we see a lot is, how do I submit tests as a vehicle owner? And the answer is, unless you're a for-hire Clean Truck Check tester, you will not be responsible for submitting the information. Your responsibility is to sign the vehicle up in CTC Viz and pay the fee. And the Clean Truck Check credentialed tester is the one who's going to be responsible for sending the results to CARB. Last common question we have here is, where can I find my test results? And if you're an owner, you can take a look in CTC Viz under the vehicle details page. For the VIN credentialed testers, can access submitted test results. So if you're a credentialed tester, you should be able to see your submitted results. And additionally, if you're curious about a vehicle, again, you can use that compliance check tool that's available online. Okay, with that, we're going to move into our next presentation on Clean Truck Check, compliance support, and enforcement overview. I'm going to introduce Antonio, and he's going to go over some of the aspects of what you'll see in the field for Clean Truck Check related inspections. And if you want to use this or that, that's fine. Okay, great. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, well. Hi, everyone. My name is Antonio, and I'll be covering the enforcement aspect on the Clean Truck Check program. So let me see, back up. Okay, so here you see high emitter screening and roadside inspections. Enforcement roadside inspections are ongoing, and when we see violations, those may result in citations. Um, Here on the photo, you'll see the remote emissions monitoring device, and these screen vehicles as they pass through the system. Vehicles that are identified as potential high emitters through this REMD will receive a notice to submit to testing, or may be selected for inspection. Submitted passing tests are required, or owners of the vehicles may also ask for 30 days to have more time to comply. And failure to respond to our notice to submit to testing letters may result in penalties. Also in this REMD device, we do have automated license plate recognition cameras, which take photos of the vehicle license plates, and also they link the emissions readings of the vehicle while it is passing through the unit. Okay, so tips for Clean Truck Check compliance. To ensure that your vehicle remains in compliance with the Clean Truck Check program, there are a couple of tips here. So for the emissions controls, we do ask that you perform regular inspections of your vehicle and also perform regular scheduled maintenance on the vehicles. We also recommend that you inspect and repair a vehicle when an emissions-related issue is detected, including the warning lights on the dashboard or visible smoke coming from the exhaust. And for warning lights, really what we look at is the malfunction indicator lamp or the MIL to see if that one's illuminated, but also other warning lights like the depth gauge and the DPF sensors. When you do see visible smoke coming from the exhaust pipe, that's typically an indicator that there's a problem with the emission system. So an engine with a properly functioning diesel particulate filter should not have visible smoke. And then the last point here, to not remove or disable emissions controls components. This would be considered tampering, and tampering can lead to higher penalties and sometimes can be very difficult to repair. And then finally, please don't delay the scheduled maintenance and necessary repairs for your vehicle. Okay, driver responsibilities during the inspection. So as I mentioned before, when the vehicles are passing under the REMD for that emission screening, they may be selected for inspection. So this is out on the field. CARB will conduct roadside inspections in collaboration with CHP. So you'll see the highway patrol officers out there alongside CARB staff. So if the truck is selected for inspection, the driver should drive the vehicle to the inspection site upon direction of the inspector. And these inspection sites are noted by banners that say truck inspection that are put up by CHP. We also request that from the driver, proof of the driver's license, vehicle registration, and any other related documentation. While following directions from the inspector, which are typically opening and closing the door, the hood, turning the engine on and off during the tests, performing the snap acceleration test for those smoke opacity tests, and then also letting us see the dashboard and plugging into the OBD or the onboard diagnostic connector. And then failure to allow an inspection is a violation of this regulation and may result in an enforcement action and penalties. Okay. Okay, so CARB test referee program. So as the CARB and the University of California, Riverside have partnered to provide referee services for Clean Truck Check. The Clean Truck Check referee program, or also known as CARB test, mission is to provide independent evaluations of non-gasoline heavy-duty vehicles with a gross vehicle weight rating of 14,000 pounds and higher. CARB test offers services for heavy-duty vehicles, and I believe they're out here today, with inspection incompatibilities or compliance issues. Enforcement may require a referee inspection to be conducted via the CARB test referee network, similar to referee testing in the light-duty smog program. Responsibilities to ensure accuracy. So for both the tester and the vehicle owner or the person responsible for the vehicle, they have a responsibility to submit true and accurate tests. Excuse me. So within the HDIM or Clean Truck Check program, it allows CARB to hold all entities associated with the vehicle undergoing HDIM compliance testing accountable for ensuring that tests are properly performed and the data submitted to CARB is accurate. This means that the HDIM testers or the certified testers themselves, companies or entities that employ their HDIM testers for in-house compliance testing, and vehicle owners, they all have a stake in the compliance testing process. Through CARB's HDIM enforcement provisions, we have the ability to revoke the HDIM tester credential of any tester found to be in violation of any requirement in the HDIM regulation, such as improperly performing compliance testing, purposely submitting inaccurate data, or using testing equipment not approved by CARB. We can also prohibit HDIM testers from retesting and renewing their expired or revoked credentials, and prohibit entities from employing their own HDIM testers based on violations. Additional enforcement penalties can also be assessed depending on the severity of the violations and can extend to the vehicle owner and the company or entity that employs that HDIM tester. Okay, so on this next slide, we're going to have a video of a typical roadside inspection. That first photo was of the screening device, but this video is going to be more on the inspection side. Okay.
California Highway Patrol pulls over a big rig to begin a heavy-duty diesel inspection. The CHP and California Air Resources Board do these all over the state because big diesel trucks and buses are the biggest emitters of cancer-causing black carbon. They are also major sources of other harmful pollutants, as well as greenhouse gases. Here you can see a typical heavy-duty truck inspection. The inspectors have pickup trucks that carry mobile inspection stations and offices. The office has laptops, printers, emission testing equipment, and anything else the inspector needs to perform a diesel vehicle inspection. Once the truck has come to a full stop, the inspector lets the driver know he is conducting a compliance inspection for the California Air Resources Board, or CARB. California's Health and Safety Code gives CARB the authority to conduct these inspections. The inspection begins with a check of the dashboard and the cab of the truck to see if there are any illegal modifications or any malfunctioning indicator lamps. This includes the check engine light and diesel exhaust fluid light. The inspector also checks the diesel particulate filter lights to make sure there are no problems with the filter. Once that inspection is complete, a visual snap idle test is conducted to determine the opacity of a vehicle's exhaust. If the opacity is closely to standard, full snap idle tests will be conducted using an opacity meter. Once the opacity of the vehicle has been assessed, the inspector asks the driver to turn off the engine, open the hood of the truck, and conducts the inspection of the engine itself. The inspector looks for a number of things to determine if the truck is in compliance with diesel regulations. They verify that the engine has a legible emission control label. They check for missing, modified, or additional engine components that could indicate tampering. The inspector also checks to make sure the truck has a diesel particulate filter. If there's no filter, inspectors will check CARB's database to see if the truck is registered for a provision in the truck and bus regulation that allows it to operate without one. They also check the database to make sure vehicles are properly registered for the drayage rule, the transportation refrigeration rule, or the off-road rule, as appropriate. They may also test the urea content in the diesel exhaust fluid. Finally, the inspector looks for aerodynamic equipment on both the tractor and trailer to make sure they're compliant with the SmartWay program, which helps reduce greenhouse gas emissions and improve fuel efficiency. If the truck is compliant with the heavy-duty diesel regulations, it's sent on its way. If the inspector finds a violation, a citation will be issued on the spot. Most inspections take less than 10 minutes.
Okay, so in that video, they did cover mostly like the smoke capacity testing. What they didn't show was a test done for an OBD compliant vehicle. So typically, the only difference would be that we request to connect to the OBD plug, which is usually on the driver's side, and we do the scan right there for the onboard diagnostics test. And then also we do look at from the engine all the way to the exhaust pipe. To the end of the exhaust pipe, making sure that all the emissions controls are connected. Okay, so this is actually the last slide. So we have here HDIM Clean Truck Check resources. So we have the program homepage, which is listed at the very top, and then a list of smoke meters. So again, for the smoke capacity tests that are required, the list of their smoke meter manufacturers, and then a CARB credential tester training, which we mentioned earlier, that we have available on our website. And for any questions on the program, please direct those to hdim@arb.ca.gov. So with that, I'm pretty sure that's the last one. So Dylan, you want to take over?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Antonio. If you guys can maybe stay on stage there, and you can leave that up there, and there's a microphone there. That one still works. Kiana, if you want to hop on the other one. Thank you very much. So Antonio's been up here presenting. We also have Kiana here. She is from the HDIM, or Clean Truck Check program. We're going to open it up now for questions and answers in the room. As far as the process goes, we've got a couple roaming mics around. What we're going to do is, if you have a question, please raise your hand. A couple considerations for folks. One question at a time, please, today. We do have a limited amount of time to facilitate some of the question and answers. And also, please remember that if you have some detailed or very specific questions, to handle those probably at the one-on-one table. That's the best place for you to handle those questions today. Do we have any questions here in the room? We have one here up at the front.
I need to stand up. Hi, my question is related to that video we saw on the roadside inspections for diesel vehicles. I noticed the first vehicle they pulled over had a alternative fuel tag on the front bumper, which I believe was an LNG vehicle.
Right.
And then we didn't see it anymore, and everything's referred to diesel. So my question is, did they waive it off after they found out it was alternative fuel, or what's the process? Because I have mostly CNG vehicles.
Okay, perfect.
That's my question.
Yeah, so in the video, it's a little bit outdated. But I will say that, let's say that that we were to pull it over today. Yes, LNG are subject to the regulation. So we would go through the full process. So depending on the year of the engine, so 2018 and newer, we would be doing the OBD test, and for 17 and older engines, we would be doing the a visual inspection of the emissions controls component. So still looking at see if there's any warning lights, and then making sure that all the components are connected. Okay. Yep, no problem. Next question.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi,
Okay.
name's George, and mine's more regarding the certificates. So are the certificates now mandatory now that they have the QR code? And if so, is there a way that we can print them in bulk?
You want to take that?
The QR codes are automatically on. Hello, the QR codes are automatically generated on compliance certificates now. And if you want one compliance certificate that has all of your entities' vehicles on it, that would be the affirmation of fleet-wide compliance certificate. So as long as all of your active vehicles are compliant and you have no forms or payments in progress, you could generate that certificate. Is it mandatory to stay in the truck? It's recommended just in case. Would you like to expand on that?
Yeah, for it to be in the truck, I'm not sure that that's a requirement or a mandatory requirement, but during an inspection, for example, we would look up the license plate and look up the VIN to verify that it is in the clean truck check system, or CTC Viz.
Yes, I got a question. Trucks they're 2012 old, and does it have a deadline to retire those models?
So right now, the requirement, so statewide, it's the engine should be a 2010 or newer engine. So 2012s are really they've already met that requirement. But for CTC, they still need to do kind of the very first slide that we had. They have those three. They have to be registered in CTC Viz. They have to pay the annual compliance fee, and then they also have to make sure that they're doing all of their periodic testing as required. So that they're still good. Just make sure you're compliant with CTC.
Question about the roadside inspections. Do the CARB inspectors have the authority to put a vehicle out of service? Or is it, because they said a citation will be right on the side. Is there any way they could say you're out of service, red tag it, your SOL, and take it fixed?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So we don't typically place vehicles out of service. We do have the ability to issue a citation for any of the violations. Today's focus is on clean truck check, but at the end of the video, you see that there are other regulations that we may issue citations for. But additionally, because we do have CHP on site, the highway patrol officer is the one that can actually put the vehicle out of service, but that's a decision made by the officer.
I assume after the inspection, you have a certificate to present, correct?
So after the inspection, our test is uploaded directly into the CTC database. We don't physically provide a certificate that says that it passes, but we will notify the driver if the vehicle passed or failed the test.
If you're exempt, if you have zero emission fleet, how do you get a sort of certificate? Because sometimes we find ourselves, we have to present something to our carriers. Do you have such a, because we wouldn't need to have that inspection done.
If you have a zero emission vehicle, you could still report the vehicle in CTC Viz and claim that zero emission exemption, and you should generate an exemption certificate only if you require that compliance certificate for a broker.
Thank you.
Just a quick question. If I pass the inspection, roadside inspection,
Mhm.
can that actually be in compliance for the 6 months? Or do I still have to get another inspection elsewhere in order to stay in compliance? Meaning, can I use that inspection as a passing grade, right?
If it's within the 90-day submission window, it will count for your testing requirement.
Okay, perfect. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and to be clear, it has to be a passing test, not a failing test.
Hi, yes, good morning. Does the clean truck inspection applies to bobtail drivers transporting propane, renewable propane, or even some transporting hydrogen? Does it apply to those particular drivers or trucks?
Clean Truck Check applies to all vehicles that are diesel or alternative fuel with a gross vehicle weight rating over 14,000 pounds that operate on public California roads.
It would depend on what the powertrain is for the vehicle that you're talking about.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
On your 90 days prior to your due date, is it literally 90 days or is it 3 months? So is it 90 calendar days?
It is 90 calendar days.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, my question's on the telematics. How can I find out more information as far as which one is approved, and then obviously more information as to how we connect the telematics to the CTC VIS account?
There's a webpage on the HDIM CARB website that lists all certified OBD testing devices, including telematics devices.
And just to add to that, some of the specifics are going to be depending upon the device specifics, the vendor specifics, and the software, right? So some of that support is going to be from the vendor you buy the device from. However, that list of certified devices is available on our website.
I'm wondering if we're going to see changes to the program in regards to the federal government and the EPA doing away with emissions. How is this going to work?
Currently, Clean Truck Check is still effective.
So you guys don't have any plans for the future so far?
As of right now, it's still effective, yes.
No.
Just one more on the inspections.
Mhm.
If when you're pulled over, the driver has a valid certificate, do they still go through the whole process, the inspection process?
Right, yeah, they still have to go through the inspection process. So basically at that point, if they do get selected for inspection, they just need to follow the officer and the inspector's directions.
So I understand that the units are due at their registration date, right, for testing. But say if you have 200 plus trucks on the IRP system and you have a 90-day window to test all these, do you guys have some leeway in that? Maybe we can, since they are in the IRP system, I don't know, there's a certain amount of or set amount of trucks that you can test during that period. Maybe you can get some 30 days grace period after that.
The testing will only be valid 90 days prior to your testing deadline. If your test is past due, you could still submit a test and meet that requirement.
Any other questions in the room?
Any more questions for Clean Truck Check or enforcement?
Any online question?
No. Give everyone a minute or two to think. If anything else comes to mind, if not, we'll move on to our next agenda item.
And just a reminder, as we're dealing with this here, we do have folks staffing the Clean Truck Check and the enforcement table all day today. So if you do have a question that comes up later on, or you don't want to talk here in front of an audience and the live stream, please come visit these folks over at the one-on-one table. Go ahead, sir.
My question was if a truck is not compliant by the due date, immediately the day after, do they get like a penalty or something like that?
There is no fee in CTC Viz if you're non-compliant, but you would be subject to enforcement action. And if you are trying to register your if you're trying to renew your registration, you would get a SB 210 registration hold with the DMV.
Okay, but if the test is not due with the registration, right? Because it's twice a year. So on that other one that is not due with the registration, if they don't comply by the due date, is there like any consequences?
You would be subject to enforcement action.
Yeah, I guess an example would be if that vehicle was past due on compliance testing and it was selected for inspection, or it went through one of those REMD devices, it may be issued a citation for past due compliance, and then also it would really depend on the test itself if it passed or failed. But it is liable for citation and penalties after it's past due.
Thank you.
Any more questions in the room? These have been great so far. Thank you very much for these questions. There's some new ones that we haven't seen at our previous events.
Okay, well, we have a table as well. So if you guys have any questions or follow-up questions to anything I've said, please feel free to walk over to the enforcement table.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, wait, we've got one last one. We'll call this the last one. How about that? Sure.
I just wanted to know the percentage that you have of bilingual inspectors on the road, California.
That's a good question. Percentage? Yeah, I mean, I'm bilingual myself. I'm an inspector. I do work with other bilingual inspectors, but there's a good amount of them that are out on the field that can speak Spanish.
All right, we're going to close on this a little bit early and start up our next presentation panel a little bit earlier as well. So thank you very much, Kiana. Thank you very much, Antonio. And folks in the room, if you do have further questions, please go and see these two at the one-on-one table. All right, next up, I'm going to introduce Larry for our next portion of the event. Larry.
Great, thank you, Dylan. If I could get Enid and Umar at the table. All right, good morning, all. My name is Larry Riera. I'm staff with the California Air Resources Board. For this next segment of our workshop today, we're going to talk about specifically public-private fleets and the complete complex of issues that they address from subject matter experts, from the community, from the charging side, from the OEM side. And that's what we'll do for the next hour or so. So what we'll do right now is we'll start with self-introductions from our panel members. I will present a few contextualized slides on the topic, and then we'll get into a discussion. We will then break, and you're more than welcome to come up and ask the panelists questions. Let's go ahead and start with Heather over to the right. Thank you. Should be on.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Heather Zappia with the Making Hope Happen Foundation here in San Bernardino, the city of San Bernardino. And I am the program manager of a workforce development program that we developed at the nonprofit, which focuses on teaching the youth about electrification and building up our city's electric charging infrastructure within the city because we are an inland port. And through this work experience, they are able to not only find out where their next pathway is, but also build within their community. So that way they start to grow roots within the community.
Good morning. I'm Omar Javed. I'm president and co-founder of What EV. The mission of What EV is to build charging infrastructure throughout California. Currently, we have 5 operating sites in Southern California. We have a 6th site coming up in about a couple of months in Oxnard. And then we have about 15 additional sites up north all the way to Sacramento. That's one part of our business. In addition to that, we have our own trucking operation. We decided to do that from the very beginning so we can go through the learning process, how electrification will work, how transition will work, because we don't want to just go and build infrastructure without the knowledge how the trucking sector works. So we wanted to make sure we familiarize ourselves, learn through those experiences, and improve our infrastructure over time. And the third most important element or part of our business is helping owner-operators, small fleets, to transition them into electrification. What we do, we help them acquire trucks. If they cannot acquire themselves, help them leasing those trucks. We act like a leasing company as well for them, help them with mapping out the charging infrastructure, helping them with their route planning, and also introduce them to shipper community. So these are our core 3 areas where we're focused on. And we'll talk about a few other things as we progress this panel conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mar.
Hi, I'm Ina Jaffe with Green Paradigm Consulting. I've been working on EV charging for 30 years, and I both with Southern California Edison and as a business owner and entrepreneur. And I started selling chargers in the Inland Empire back in 1999 when nobody knew what an EV was and nobody knew what a charger was. So, and I became very passionate about the opportunity for zero emissions, clean air, health, for our families, and have kept going. And now I work with Heather on the youth programs and educating our youth about the career opportunities in EVs. And I have installed and sold thousands of chargers and sold my business, and I'm now working on training the next generation.
Thank you, Enid.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Chesney. I'm the Technical Services Manager with Omnitrans, and we are the public transit provider for the Western San Bernardino County. We cover about 460 square miles from Yucaipa to Chino Hills, from the foothills here in San Bernardino to Riverside, with a fleet of about 155 buses. We're currently transitioning to a fully zero-emission transit bus fleet. Right now, we currently have 4 battery electric buses in service and 4 hydrogen fuel cell buses in service, with 18 more battery electric buses coming online next year. In my role, I oversee the maintenance training. Met Heather several times, working with the youth of the county, as well as vehicle procurements and other special projects within the agency.
Great, thank you all. I appreciate this. Clearly, we have before us subject matter experts in this transportation electrification space for a very long time, including community involvement. And that's part of one of the elements we'll talk about right now, the community elements. So CARB's approach to clean heavy is through our clean truck check programs, We have also increased our pipeline of zero-emission vehicle technologies. We note 260 models makes on our website. We also support locally adopted sustainability measures and goals, not just in the transportation electrification space, but certainly as it relates to the built environment, our commercial or residential properties as well. We also provide incentives and funding, some of which can be stacked to purchase the assets or the infrastructure, and certainly to look at other solutions, financing solutions that you will bring as a private or public entity. And then also we're continuing to evolve our clean fuels and engines on the vehicle side. The transition to zero emission doesn't happen overnight. There's clearly a complex in actions and interactions amongst new partners and existing partners. I want to underscore the existing partners because in this transition, in this movement towards electric, you must use your fossil fuel experience, your operational data, and that will help to drive not just the transportation electrification, but help you understand business process improvements as well. So we start with the planning and initiation. We certainly go through this process of analysis, the procurements of both the vehicles and the infrastructure. And a common thread with this panel is going to be workforce skills development for your existing. And if it's not your existing, who are your partners to provide that service to your technologies? And then, of course, the focus in on not just the construction installation of your assets, infrastructure assets, but the commissioning and the long-term maintenance and use of the data that comes from that, and then of course, operation service later and end-of-life replacement for that asset. This is just a very high-level overview of what's involved in the planning elements for your fleet in TE. So what do we mean when we talk about engagement? There's a complex of partners you do now, and you will have to also include in the zero emission space. CARB is party to that, of course, through not just the regulation and compliance, but certainly in the workshops and the one-on-one counseling that we provide to you, your relationship with the OEMs, your customers certainly, and the communities themselves where your vehicles, where your businesses are growing. And then, of course, the complete suite of other elements are really important to both public and private fleets. We had done our panel introductions, and so what we'll do now is we'll get into the discussion questions. And we'll start with Omar on this first question here about, as a fleet leader in zero-emission transportation, please share some lessons learned.
Thank you, Larry. As you mentioned, Larry, electrification doesn't happen overnight, or then it's not going to happen overnight. Takes lots of learnings, lots of experiments over the last several years, or last at least 5 years since we have been in business under Watt EV. We've gone through lots of learnings, lots of experiences. We're a bit in a unique situation where we are not only the infrastructure provider, we're also a carrier, and we also work closely with small fleets to help them step into this arena. So we have gone through lots of learning. There's a long list, but I can pinpoint 4 or 5 key areas that are important to us, and I think would be great to share with you. The first one is we have to accept that electrification is possible and it's happening. So it's no longer a myth. I think that we can accept. Like any new technology or evolution, it takes a little time for full adoption because infrastructure needs to be in place and all those things, but it doesn't mean it's not possible to start serving your customers. Today we are just in our own fleet, we're serving just for one customer, over 60 to 65,000 miles per week worth of freight. Just to give you a little magnitude and idea that how we're doing today. So one key learning that I can share with you is about know your trucks. It's very important. There are several OEMs out there with good products. They all work, but each truck has its own, each OEM has its own features and functionalities. And know your truck vis-a-vis your use case. That's very important. Just going and getting a truck and saying it's going to do the whole 9 yards for you, it's not going to work. So if you're in a drayage business, you need to make sure that you have the right truck that fits your need and your customers' needs. If you're in middle mile sector, you need to know which truck works best for you. Along with that, you need to also be mindful of your infrastructure availability, whether it's your own infrastructure or you're relying on third-party infrastructure, making sure that you're able to deliver goods and finish the load on a single charge, or if you have a longer range requirement, you have additional charging facilities available along the way. So lots of learnings that we have gone through, and in our own fleet, we have 3-4 different OEMs deployed, and we use those trucks, each OEM for a specific use case. And that's how we are doing it today. Of course, technology is going to continue to evolve. I think new truck OEMs or current incumbents also coming up with megawatt charge capable trucks. There's discussion there. We all seen Tesla trucks out there, a few other OEMs as well. So you need to keep an eye on that as well, that how technology is going to evolve and how it's going to help you, the industry, to adopt zero emission as quickly as possible. The other learnings I can share with you is working closely with shipper community. In the end, we all day in, day out haul freight for who? For shipper community or retailers, in other words. So you have to work very closely with them and make sure that they're also championing and working closely with you. And they do. Not all of them, but many of them do. The responsible shippers community does work with carriers to come up with use cases where they can start deploying zero emission one by one. They may not give you the massive big business day one, but over time, you can capture quite a lot of business, especially the ones that have ESG goals, have commitments made to themselves and to their stakeholders. The infrastructure is very key, a part of these learnings that we have over the last few years experience. Making sure that infrastructure is built by infrastructure providers as such where it can serve everybody's needs. You cannot go and conquer the whole California overnight. So that's why we were very focused initially doing Southern California first, make sure Port of Long Beach, Port of LA is covered, San Diego part is covered, Inland Empire is covered, and follow where the traffic is. Not just building infrastructure which sits there and you're not utilizing it. So putting your dollars to the right place at the right time to make sure that economically it's viable for everyone. Another thing I can tell you is that for when it comes to drivers community, drivers group in this whole equation, there has always been, I'm sure all of you learned that over the last several years, that there was fear of this range anxiety that, oh, well, if I can finish the tour or not. So we learned a lot and we collected lots of data, different OEMs, different trucks, their capabilities, looking at drivers' habits, how they drive, what speed they're driving, how much braking they're using, et cetera, et cetera. So compiling all that data has been quite helpful to not only optimize your operations, but also help drivers to understand that how they should operate these machines. They are not just diesel trucks where you put your foot on the gas and And if you run out of gas, you're going to just stop somewhere and refill it. Here you have those limitations. So currently, in some cases, we're doing up to 300 miles round trip. And again and again and again. So it's not just one time thing. We have been doing that for now several years. We didn't get to that 300-mile range with various OEMs by just magic. I mean, we set the speed limit for drivers, we coach them, we help them. So all those different areas that everybody needs to just focus on to make sure that you just don't come and say this truck won't do more than 150 miles, and that's my limit. If you want to maximize utilization of your truck and optimize your operations and processes and earn more business, you need to look into all these. So I'm going to pause for now.
Please, Annette.
Maybe step in. So first of all, good point about range anxiety. I was driving EVs when they had 30 miles to the charge, and back in the early 1990s, and now my car has well over 300 miles. So talk to me if you want to ask about range anxiety. But I think the number one factor, and this is kind of non-traditional, is your attitude. Are you someone who embraces change? Are you willing to be experimental, put up with the ups and downs? When you're any new technology, whether it's a new computer, a new boiler, a new heat pump, whatever it is, new technology is not perfect the first time around. So if you're the kind of person or company that can't handle that and is just going to think about all the negatives, then I suggest you probably want to wait. But there's a lot of people out there who've become champions, and that circle has been growing and growing and growing. And the products have gotten so much better. The infrastructure has gotten so much better. Innovations like Watt EV's business are fantastic. And one of the things I say to the students is, sky's the limit in opportunities. I'm training veterans who are looking for new careers, and their feedback to me is, I want a career that AI isn't going to take away. And I've never seen a charger installation that could be done by AI. So I think they're safe, at least for now. But I do think if you have that attitude about innovation and interest in really, there's sky's the limit in terms of business opportunities, and I think Umar is living proof of that. A couple of other things that I can tell you from my 30 years in the business: when we worked with Santa Barbara Transit Agency, who was the first to adopt electric buses in downtown Santa Barbara. And so they had a lot of lessons learned. And one of them was, you have to have a champion in the organization, somebody who's going to see the positives and work with them. So they did a contest as to who could get the most range out of their electric buses. And it was very successful because it is a different driving experience. But the other feedback that we've gotten is there's no vibration, no lower back pain. It's quiet. Your neighbors are happy with you. You're not idling a diesel truck on their street. There's many, your costs are lower. Your maintenance costs are lower. Your fuel cost is a fraction of what it was. So there's many positives, but a lot of it comes back to attitude. And then the last point I'll make is, the early bird gets the worm and the early adopter gets the money. And usually the way California regulation works, if you adopt ahead of the requirement, you get money. And I know some companies, a street sweeper company in particular, who's got millions and millions of dollars from government sources to completely change out his street sweepers because he was willing to adopt early. If you're the last one to adopt, there's probably not any money, and you're going to be paying whatever the market price is. So, so those, I think, are the kind of two takeaways I'd like to leave you with on lessons learned, and I'll talk about some of the planning stuff later.
Great, thank you, Enid. I'm going to shift a little bit on this question about zero-emission transportation. We heard from commercial, we heard from lived experience, and I want to pivot to our transit. The Innovative Clean Transit Program is many years in the making. We heard Vicky describe a fleet that was not only battery electric, but it included fuel cell electric as well. So, Vicky, perhaps you can share some lessons learned?
Probably one of the biggest lessons is you have to have a little bit of flexibility and have a backup plan. You start putting your infrastructure in, things may not work the way you want it. Your planning may not work. Your vehicles may be delivered differently than your infrastructure needs are put in. You have to work with your utilities. You may not have the power at your facility to be able to bring in the infrastructure that you want to bring in. So you have to be a little bit flexible with what you're doing. You have to lay out your plans, but realize, like anything, sometimes the best laid plans don't always come to fruition in the time frame that you want it to happen.
Great, thank you, Vicky. The second question is a little bit akin to the first and some of the panel members' responses, but zero-emission trucks, the infrastructure, and the workforce requires thoughtful planning. Please share some experiences that you can share with fleets that are either starting out this experience or journey, or those that have been in for years. Thank you.
Sure. So I think we're talking about trucks, infrastructure, workforce, right? And to me, if you're a new fleet or an existing fleet, diesel fleet, and you want to now embark on this journey of zero emission, you need to really think very hard upfront that are you going to do all two areas yourself, meaning you're going to acquire your trucks and expand your fleet with zero emission and also get into infrastructure, or you want to just focus on where what you're best at, meaning driving trucks and hauling freight, keeping your customers happy. So lots of people that I have spoken to, they are not sure if they should do both or they should just focus on one. Fact is that infrastructure is costly. Even if it's subsidized, it takes time, lots of engineering, lots of coordination with utilities, with government permitting, et cetera, et cetera. So you need to make up your mind upfront. But assuming you are embarking anyway on zero emission trucking, the planning standpoint, I think you need to be very, very mindful of what infrastructure you're relying upon. So because that's your lifeline, right? Because like gas stations versus electric fueling stations. So you need to make sure that look at your use case, look at your customer base, and plan accordingly. So if you have, for example, 10 trucks today or 20 trucks diesel, and you want to add 5 more electric now, you need to pick and choose and say, what routes I'm going to run these trucks on? What are the most optimal routes where I have electricity available? I can finish my routes in a timely fashion. Lots of things go in planning, off-peak, peak rates of electric charging. So you need to keep that in mind. Some things I mentioned earlier, a few items like making sure drivers are trained, your workforce is trained well, that they are, this is not a rocket science. It's just a training. It's just collecting the data, learning, speaking with your peer level experience, other operators, and see how things work. Make sure your drivers are properly coached. OEM's not going to coach you. That I can tell you. I'll be very blunt. They're not going to come and tell you how to drive your truck. They're in business of selling trucks. They make trucks. They all the tools are there, but this comes from firsthand experience. So lots of planning that you need to go put into work, and is that putting those pieces together and say how I'm going to run my first 2 or 5 or 10 trucks so efficiently and not take too much risk. Don't try to go and do 300-mile range round trip that I mentioned from day one. Start with 200-mile range, and as you mentioned, challenge yourself and say, no, I can do better because I know Umar can do it, then I can do it too. So that route planning is very important. charging infrastructure availability within your routes that you have chosen to serve your customer. And then also be mindful of one cost element that exists today is the dwell time. It takes, I think, average, depending on OEM, 2.5 hours to 3.5 hours to charge an electric truck today. So that dwell time, you need to, again, part of your route planning and your delivery planning, you want to make sure that you don't have a driver sitting there charging for 3 hours, because every dollar counts. So keep that in mind. That's today. But what I do know is that we have some Tesla trucks as an example in our possession right now. If they go full production next year or following years, and other OEMs as well that are coming up and saying they will have megawatt charge capable trucks, keep that in mind as well as part of your planning. You don't need to wait for those trucks. You can start with current trucks to start experimenting, start learning, and getting comfortable with it.
Let me pick up on that question a little bit, Umar, and I'm going to shift it to skilling, upskilling, reskilling your workforce. Clearly, fleets come with either the incumbent workforce, they'll have to retool that workforce, the OEMs will provide that, or perhaps it's the college community, there's private instruction as well. Can you talk a little bit about that transition, all of you, and how you support that from your current perspective?
Hi, everyone. So I feel if we're thinking about the future of how our companies are going to be, I think the best way we can utilize our community is investing in the community by showing up and going to working with the colleges, working with the CTE programs, and seeing what education are they teaching and filling in those gaps. This is a part of the community part. This is the give and take aspect of it. Teachers are actually currently looking for that connection, that little step that's going to make their programs better, so that way they can teach people easier and bring them into that workforce. They're looking for that, as they call it, and I'm sure you'll probably hear it a lot if you go with working with the CTE programs, are pathways. They are looking for those gaps in those pathways currently. So working with the teachers now, working with the CTE programs now, will not only help you in the long run with that education, but also bringing in that workforce and getting those students educated, getting them the correct education, because you put in your input of their curriculum, and they are better trained and ready to go basically when they are in your company. So you have investing in them now with just showing up with your presence and working with those teachers. You're building trust, you're building that community, you're building your workforce. And a lot of the times, a lot of people don't realize that working with about maybe 5.4 of the communities know about nonprofit organizations. That's a little bit. That is a little bit. And nonprofits, like I said, are nonprofits. And I think it should be utilized, another tool in your toolbox to utilize finding that workforce, because we are in the schools. We are the boots on the ground in the community. So if you're looking for workforce, a strong workforce, just investing that little bit of time, that little bit of education, being flexible, like Vicky says, and embracing that change, like Enid said, that is like, and like Umar says, it's not rocket science. Just work together, be in the community.
So we are public transit, so we are part of our community. And we've suffered from the last several years with, workforce shortages, like a number of places. And one of our biggest decisions is we want to grow our own. And to that extent, we've partnered with Valley College for a maintenance apprentice program so that we can take the young people that want to learn, that maybe don't have the skills, never heard about the skills. We can take them, we can bring them in, we can grow them. They get their education through the college and they get their hands on with us and they become part of the Omnitrans group. So it's really important to work with the community, to see what needs are out there in the community and see what gaps that we can fill with our technologies and bring those people on board.
Yeah, I want to add to that, that I think some of the benefits about these green jobs is that many of them are local. And it's really kind of a reinvention of workforce because chargers need to be repaired and they need to be maintained. And you don't really want to be flying somebody in from Massachusetts or Virginia to fix your charger and then worry about where the parts are going to come from, etc. So what we're trying to do is train people in the community to work in the community, and as Heather said, stay in the community, and by creating these jobs. And also, I think as an entrepreneur, I'm a firm believer in the power of entrepreneurship. I've done all three. I worked for a nonprofit, I worked for Southern California Edison, a huge corporation, and I worked for myself. And I think entrepreneurship provides a fabulous path for a lot of people. And that's something you can still do in this field because it's brand new and there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of things to be done, a lot of needs to be met. So I think it's a different kind of education, and a lot of what 5% know about nonprofits, about an equal number know about electric vehicles. So we have a lot of education. People don't understand the range of careers that we're talking about. AI, we're talking about programming, we're talking about network operating systems, as well as hardware. The charger itself is pretty simple. It's not rocket science, but the bigger chargers, like what Umar has, are a little more complicated. But there's still a lot of effort to be done. We are desperate for people to repair and maintain chargers, and that is a local job.
Vicky, perhaps you can share a little bit about your infrastructure since you embrace both battery electric charging and hydrogen refueling.
Engage with your utilities early, and engage with the construction process early. Again, timelines are important. You may have vehicles delivered, you don't have the infrastructure in place, you have the infrastructure, you don't have the vehicle. So trying to time everything up can be quite the task. So engage with not only your OEMs for your vehicle manufacturers, but engage with your utilities and get your timelines mapped out to see what the length of time is to get all these things tied up and all together at the same time. For public transit, we not only do the charging at the depot, but we also do en-route charging. So that means land acquisition somewhere out on the routes that the buses run. Again, engaging with cities, landowners, everything that comes involved with making that infrastructure happen.
And if I could add to that, you can't emphasize enough how important it is to engage with the utility early and often, because I can't tell you how many times we have had buses or vehicles, trucks arrive, and either the infrastructure isn't ready or it's the wrong infrastructure and somebody's invested thousands and thousands of dollars and the plug and the vehicle are not compatible. So utilities have a lot of expertise. They also have a lot of incentive programs and grants. We're in fact using the Charge Ready program for some of our work and part of the Edison program for some chargers in San Bernardino. And if you're doing school buses, you got to decide whether you're going to do slow charging, fast charging. There's a lot of opportunities, but you really need that advice. And utilities are quoting 2 and 3 year lead times right now. And that's unacceptable, quite honestly. And we're going to have to solve that problem. But nevertheless, if you don't start, you won't end. You won't get there.
So we understand the workforce from the construction, installation of infrastructure. We understand it from the adoption, the operation of the vehicle and the asset. But it's a very dynamic field as well. There are emerging technologies and trends that are coming out there. Perhaps you can talk about how you're addressing advanced and emerging technologies in your communities and with the workforces.
The youth. 100% the youth. The youth are tech savvy, young little superhumans, and and they don't know how to use their powers yet. And it's up to us to be able to teach them how to use those powers. And it's kind of like a give and take as we are teaching them, they also teach us because with this program that we have, it's a paid internship program where we hire 10 youth from the school district. And we, with our goal of building up San Bernardino's infrastructure. So these 10 youth, where we were looking for the top of the class, we want mid-level students that are like, oh yeah, I have some time after school. Yeah, money, sure. Yeah, I'll take some money. Thanks. And by the end of the internship, they learn about the city, how the city government works. They meet the mayor, they meet the city council people. They learn about the different laws and the regulations. They learned about zoning, figuring out why we have so many empty lots, and all those different aspects. That inspired a few of our students to get into city government, and they've actually changed their majors to go into political science and wanting to come back to figure out different ways to make small businesses and our community better. And that's a huge impact. Another thing that I don't want he's not our golden child. He's just our biggest naysayer. I hired him because he was completely like, oh, I'm a gas guzzler guy. I love my old cars. It was in the car maintenance auto club. He was in auto club, auto shop. And then so I hired him because I needed that naysayer. I needed those people that said, hey, people are talking about range anxiety, or these cars aren't going to last very long. The technology's too new. And that's why we are so now able to say, hey, yes, the technology is new, but it's advancing. Look at the amazing stuff. We're solving the problems that you are asking about. And with this, he has been able to change basically his whole perspective, learning about the community. He really wanted to go into cars. And then now he wants to be working in nonprofit, teaching people about all the different growth that is out there, all the different programs. By the end of the programs, a lot of the interns do not realize that they have not taken their paycheck, which is really frustrating. I have to can you please come and pick up your paycheck? Because they are so interested in building up the infrastructure, leaving their mark, telling the community about the different things that they've learned. And that inspires their parents and their teachers, and it's a ripple effect, and it gets more of the parents involved. It gets more of the families involved. And I'm sure I'm talking to a lot of people in here that have their kids or have kids, and just that give and take, that community within your home, that community within your neighborhood, just really grows. I feel like I went on a tangent.
No, I
Did I
think
answer the question?
No, I think you're actually on a great point, because the mission of Making Hope Happen, and one of the reasons I chose to work with them, is to help people grow roots in San Bernardino, which quite honestly has not had the best reputation, right? People who, young people who are bright and get educated leave. And the whole concept was, don't leave, improve your community here. So by doing the exercises that we gave them, looking at the vacant lots, finding out what could be done with those lots, looking at their own home and designing a charging station for their home, figuring out what locations should have chargers, talking to community members and being able to respond to their concerns and questions. All of that, it was a huge growth experience for these students.
I will attest to youth. Years ago, when I was working on establishing zero-emission vehicle automotive programs in the state, at the college level, they would say, you got to go to the high schools. And I go, high schools? So I went to the high schools, we invested, the state did, 71 ZEV high schools in California, 5 of them right here in this region. And they said, no, you got to go to middle schools. And I was gladly informed by middle school instructors for CTE, career technical education, and after schools programs for fuel cell technologies. They used some very interesting technologies, but the kids were getting an introduction at a very young age. So that's really important. Secondly, the emergence of community-based solutions. We heard from Heather, we heard from Enid, and certainly they're part of the fabric here to grow the workforce, to take care of not just the vehicle assets, but the charging infrastructure, but also part of this longer term education and awareness of the technologies where all of us reside, and we'll be able to see the technologies and be part of the growth and acceleration. So let me move to our last question. And this is about CARB. CARB has a responsibility, of course, for improving our air quality, our greenhouse gas reduction measures, not just our environmental, but we also contribute and seek advancement in our socioeconomic beneficiaries and impacts as well. So how can CARB improve, foster communications, and meaningful community engagement on zero-emission heavy-duty fleet transportation?
Some of the things you're doing, like this event today, are exceedingly helpful. Just being out there, answering our questions, having somebody to talk to and help us work through the process of this transition to zero-emission fleets.
Well, I think tying together the kinds of things you're talking about today with the clean truck inspections and requirements to their impact on the community. As the regulated community, you probably think, oh God, I got another, another certificate, another inspection. Why do I have to comply with this? But if the number one item feedback from the community organizations on air quality in this area is truck idling, and their number one request is to enforce truck idling. Because think about the growth of the warehouses around here, trucks idling on residential streets, trucks waiting to get into the warehouses, 200,000 trucks a day going past the 10 freeway. San Bernardino, speaking of our area, is surrounded by freeways. There are freeways on 4 sides. So everything you do to get a clean truck helps people who live in this community. And I think that's something that CARB could really promote, is the fact that it's not just about regulation for air quality. That's kind of a big abstract concept. It's right here in this town where the rates of heart attacks, emphysema, asthma are sky high. So
I think we all have seen over the last many years, CARB has been a great source of support and help to anyone who wants to be in zero emission, from HVIP vouchers to ICEFs and all those different programs, just from truck acquisition standpoint. I think people should know also that CARB has other non-vehicle programs for infrastructure as well, through different agencies where they partner. And so I think continuing on that path and having more frequent engagement with the industry, both on the fleets as well as on the infrastructure players, I think that's the key for success. We just wait to stay on this path.
So CARB has made a huge impact in the community because, like I said, the paid internship program is through a grant from CARB. They've paid to teach basically to help to have us build this, this program and teach the youth and, impact the youths, like at least 20, because we've gotten 2 grants from them, at least 20 students, and impact their lives. I think, and also CARB has also, through their community engagement, learning, they have hired 20 community experts throughout throughout the state, and asked them, how can they be in the community more? How can they give back more? How can they do this, that, and the other? And they really took in what the experts have said in the community. They've hired just from different areas throughout the whole state. And they took it in, and they're teaching their staff, they're teaching the agency about how to be in the community more. My only suggestion is maybe having more representations with the CBOs that you guys are currently working with, and possibly maybe even going in with the companies that are looking into changing, and just having that representative there to do a little bit more hand-holding, because sometimes I need things explained to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So I'm sure I'm not the only one. So maybe just having a little bit more of a handhold for those who are interested into changing their fleets, and giving them all of the resources, telling them about all the different incentive programs and stuff like that. That's my only suggestion. Yeah.
Yeah, a definite plus for the incentive programs, for the funding. A lot of this transition is expensive.
It is.
So any assistance that agencies or businesses can get on the funding and incentive side is always appreciated.
Great, thank you, Vicky. A couple of the comments that resonated, I want to pull out right now. One of them is, growing your roots in your community, as Enid said. And then Heather's focus in on the vernacular. We started off this discussion in perhaps some terms you may not be familiar with. And so you will have to learn a little bit of a new vocabulary as you move into the transportation electrification space. But it's important that this is happening right here in your backyard. And you have peer-to-peer, you have the public agency of Omnitrans, you have the commercial enterprise of Watt EV, certainly to help with the education at the front end, but continued success. We want to see your enterprises thrive as well. To that end, I wanted to highlight on the back shelf is Watt EV's opening their facility just about a mile down the road. You're more than welcome to attend after the facility. Want to also acknowledge some of our OEMs that are in the room, Harbinger and Workhorse that are also here. So the support is here from a village perspective, and it's really important that you take advantage of this education and knowledge as you grow your fleets in the zero emission and the clean space as well. So with that, let's give a thanks to our panel for the discussion. Thank you. And now we'll take a 15-minute break.
All right, we're going to start the next agenda item with CARB funding overview. The first program is going to be CORE, so I'll bring up Jessica to talk about the CORE program. Switch slides here.
Good morning. My name is Jessica Monterrosa. I am the lead staff overseeing CORE manufacturer evaluations. But today we'll be talking about CORE, the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Program, HVIP, the Clean Truck and Bus and Voucher Incentive Program, and ISEP, the Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Program, as well as CalCap. All right, the Clean Off-Road Equipment Incentive Voucher incentivizes zero-emission off-road equipment by providing point-of-sale discounts across a wide range of off-road equipment categories, from agriculture, construction, commercial hovercraft, and more. To date, CORE has supported over 700 businesses and funded the purchase of more than 3,000 pieces of clean equipment across the state. 71% of CORE funds have directly benefited priority populations, including disadvantaged communities. The program also places a strong emphasis on supporting small businesses and priority populations by offering enhanced incentives in these areas. This slide includes a number of the guiding principles of the program, such as simplicity. CORE keeps the process streamlined to make it easy for businesses to access clean equipment incentives. The program also aligns with and reinforces CARB's clean air and climate goals, programs, the long-term heavy-duty investment strategies, and so on. Additionally, CORE prioritizes funding for small businesses and underserved communities. So how do you participate? CORE is a first-come, first-served program. One key benefit is that CORE allows stacking, meaning you can combine CORE funding with other incentive programs as long as you follow the rules for each. Also, you don't have to scrap your technology equipment to participate, which can make it easier for fleets to adopt new technology. You choose your zero-emission equipment, and you start by identifying the clean equipment that fits your operations. Everything is listed in the CORE catalog is eligible. Then you contact an eligible CORE dealer. You reach out to a CORE-approved dealer, and they'll walk you through options and handle the application for you. The dealer applies to CORE. Your dealer submits the voucher request. It's simple and streamlined. Then you receive a voucher. If funds are available, the voucher is issued and applied directly to your purchase. You pay the reduced amount. You only pay the discounted price. CORE covers the difference upfront, so no reimbursement or waiting. Finally, you use your zero-emission equipment. Put your new equipment to work and start reducing emissions while improving air quality in your community. Upcoming dates and launch information. CORE reopens August 2025. The next round of funding launches this summer with approximately $31 million available. Funding will be distributed on a first-come, first-served basis, and early action is key. This year, it's limited to small businesses and public agencies. This round puts a strong focus on supporting small fleets and public entities. Take advantage if you qualify. The program is open for 3 months. The window is limited. Be prepared to apply early to secure your voucher. Here is our contact information. If you have any questions, please email us at core@arb.ca.gov. Up next, we have HVIP.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Brian Rand. I'm with CalFleet Advisor, and I'll be talking about HVIP, ISEF, and CalFleet Advisor today. So today, first of all, we're discussing HVIP, which is the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project. It's designed to accelerate the adoption of cleaner and more efficient trucks and buses in California. Since 2009, over 15,000 clean vehicles have been funded, with the participation from over 2,100 fleets. Over $850 million has been redeemed since the program launch on hybrid and zero-emission technology trucks and buses. HVIP was launched in 2009 by the California Air Resources Board in partnership with the nonprofit CalSTART. And our objective is providing direct purchase incentives to fleets, making the clean vehicles more affordable. Instead of a reimbursement, vouchers are applied directly at the time of purchase, making it easier for businesses to transition to clean technology. You don't need to come up with the money up front. The incentive amount is available to you right at the time of the purchase. There's a few key principles that we operate on to ensure our effectiveness. First thing we want to do is accelerate market transformation by prioritizing the cleanest, most advanced technologies. As time goes on, those technologies change and we prioritize the newest, most advanced ones that we can. We also want to support CARB's long-term strategy to encourage heavy-duty vehicle investment. A big issue for us is we want to simplify the process for fleet owners to encourage adoption. A big part of what you'll see is that most of the paperwork is handled by the dealer on your behalf. We want to ensure equitable investments so that benefits reach people throughout the state, and especially those who are living in disadvantaged communities. And we want to minimize market disruptions to maintain predictable funding amounts so people know what the vouchers will be going forward. Finally, we want to graduate technologies to encourage innovation so we keep incentives targeted at the newest solutions. So if you're interested in participating in HVIP, there's a simple structured process to access the funding. The first thing you're going to do is identify the vehicle you're interested in, and then work with a participating dealer, the same way that you would if you were buying a truck without the process. As long as you're working with a participating dealer, after you've negotiated with them the same way you always would, you let them know that you're going to use HVIP funding and secure a voucher at that time. And it's a fleet-friendly approach. So the program is designed to minimize the administrative burden and streamline funding access. Again, most of that paperwork is handled on your behalf by the dealer. If you had any more questions about HVIP specifically, you can always info@californiahvip.org. Part of HVIP is called the Innovative Small E Fleet Project. I'll give a general overview of that for this year. We call it ISEF for short. ISEF was established as a set-aside within HVIP in the 2021 to 22 funding plan. HVIP was designed to accelerate market transformation by reducing the purchase price of zero-emission technologies. And it's the cornerstone of CARB's advanced technology heavy-duty incentives for on-road vehicles. And the current technologies include battery electric fuel cell, electric power, and electric power takeoffs. ISEF, on the other hand, was designed to help small fleets specifically and independent owner-operators overcome barriers to entering the ZEV market and to pilot innovative mechanisms like all-inclusive leases, peer-to-peer truck sharing, or truck-as-a-service agreements. Transactions within ISEF have involved 3 parties, including the ISEF provider, an HVIP-approved dealer, and an eligible small fleet participant that will use the provider's services. These small fleet participants include entities with 20 or fewer vehicles operating in California, making less than $15 million in annual revenue. So here's an example. Let's say an ISEF eligible fleet requests a voucher through a provider. It's for a Class 8 electric truck that will perform drayage operations and is domiciled in a disadvantaged community. ISEF basically doubles the base voucher. You start with an HVIP base voucher for a Class 8 vehicle of $120,000. The ISEF doubles that into $240,000. That's the ISEF base voucher. It's twice what the regular voucher is. Then there can be modifiers on top of that. I'd encourage everyone to keep an eye out for the new implementation manual that's coming soon, because some of these modifiers will change in that. And so there'll be information coming soon on how this works out. But in the general sense, ISEF will always be double or more of the base voucher. Something to keep in mind is ISEF is typically open all year. It doesn't close as long as there is funding available. ISEF is currently closed, but it will be reopening soon. ISEF is eligible for stacking with other incentives and funding sources as long as they don't claim the same kind of credits for certain state programs. And the new IM took effect on June 3rd. ISEF then closed earlier this year. It will be reopening with a new IM coming soon. So a few tentative dates to share for the upcoming months. As you can see, closed on May 7th, and there was a working group on May 30th, and a new option working group on June 13th. So anticipate early fall. It's coming up quickly, a new IM and a reopening of the program. If you need to learn more about ISEF, please contact us at isef@californiahvip.org. And you can also subscribe to CARB's Gov Delivery email updates, where they send out information on all of these programs, and we'll get the latest information as soon as it comes out. Finally, if you need help finding the right vehicles, infrastructure, incentives, anything like that, CalFleet Advisor is here to help you. It's a free technical assistance program for medium and heavy-duty fleets moving to zero-emission vehicles in California. It doesn't matter if you have 0 trucks or 50,000, we're here to help. We can guide you through your decision-making process, tailor plans specifically for your fleet, answer your questions, and help you navigate incentives and resources. Our goal is to provide everything that you need to move on and nothing that you don't, so that we're not overwhelming people. And it's all, again, state funded. It's free to the user. When you sign up with us, you can use the QR code on the screen. You get a personal advisor who listens to you, learns about your fleet, and provides dedicated, personalized resources. We'll connect you with your utilities, dealers, whoever you need to make the next step, and provide assistance with funding questions. And if you're not ready to sign up with us, that's okay. Please send us an email, give us a call. We're happy to answer any one-off questions you have. And if you want to contact us, again, calfleetadvisor.org. There's an intake form on our website. It's the best way to get in contact with us, but you can also email us at calfleetadvisor@californiahvip.org. And next, I'd like to invite my colleague up to talk about CalCap.
Hey, good morning. My name is Allison French Tubo, and I am from California Capital Access Program. Let's see So I'll talk today about our zero emission, heavy duty, and infrastructure programs. We call them as a group CalCap Z. So a little bit about us so you understand what we're doing here. We are a financing authority within the state treasurer's office, and we administer CalCap. What CalCap is risk management tools for lenders to help them be more willing and confident to loan to small businesses. We are not putting up the money for the loans, the lenders are. And then the lenders enroll the loans with us. So CalCap Z is supporting the transition to zero emission vehicles and infrastructure. The focus is on owner operators and small fleets up to 20 vehicles. And that is because we know that lenders have the most concerns about lending to smallest businesses, because you can be really great at your business, doing a great job being profitable, but frankly, you are more likely to be wiped out if something unfortunate happens to you or in the larger economy. So that's a risk for a lender. And the simplest way for them to not have that risk is just not loan to those smallest businesses, but we want them to loan to the smaller businesses. Although the program is referred to as zero emission heavy duty, it does include medium duty over 8,500 pounds gross vehicle weight. It does include the infrastructure for zero emission for medium duty and heavy duty. Installation is included, can be included in the enrolled loan for some, and same for trailers. There are actually 3 pilot programs that work together, but as a borrower, you don't need to worry about which one the lender is using. It's based on if you're in a certain utility service area or if they're using the statewide version of the program. But the 3 variants are funded by California Air Resources Board, California Energy Commission, and Southern California Edison. And yes, you can use this program with the incentives and vouchers that you've already heard about. So if you're an owner, operator, or small fleet, how you can participate. First, you can see what size, it's really like the vehicle sizes and such are available. You can also first work with CalFleet Advisor to figure out what it is that you're looking for. You can then check the eligibility and plan your purchase or track lease, and then choose from a list of our participating lenders and apply. And then if you're a lender, this is how a lender would participate. And so if you want to find out more about CalCap Z, that is the top QR code. If you want to learn about our other CalCap programs, because maybe you have need access to capital for something that is not a zero emission medium or heavy duty vehicle, we do have other programs. And then the final one is for our agency as a whole. Thank you so much. And I believe South Coast AQMD will be up next.
Hi, good morning. My name's Jessie Conway, a staff specialist with South Coast QMD, and I'll be briefly highlighting the VW mitigation program. The VW program is a statewide program funding various equipment categories, including Class 7 and Class 8 on-road trucks. The program is currently accepting online applications on a first-come, first-served basis, but there are only about 2 million in project funds. The program pays via reimbursement. Old trucks will need to be scrapped, and the contract is 3 years. As for truck funding, up to 102,000 is available for the replacement or repower of 0.02 NOx CNG. And up to 240,000 for replacement to ZE, but the ZE category is currently waitlisted. Various documentation will need to be submitted during the time of application, including vehicle title and registration. For questions, please feel free to reach out to our team, and email is generally preferred.
Hey, good morning or afternoon. It's getting close to afternoon. Okay, my name is Tom Lee. I'm one of the managers here in South Coast, and I'm going to just take a next couple minutes to highlight a few of the upcoming opportunities that are currently open programs. The first is Invest Clean. As you may have heard, South Coast received a $500 million grant from the EPA, and this is to electrify our vast goods movement industry in the South Coast, well, actually in the South, not South Coast only, but it's a South area because we're including all counties. The MSAs are what's under Invest Clean. The two MSA means metropolitan statistical area, and that includes all areas of the 4 counties. So the projects would have to be in these 4 counties to be eligible. So Invest Clean is essentially 4 measures instead of measures. The first one is fast charging for heavy-duty trucks. The second one are the trucks themselves, and this is for Class 4, Class 5, and Class 8. The third measure is cargo handling equipment, and the fourth measure is battery electric switchers. Now, for the first measure, these are just fast charging infrastructure. We're requiring that the projects have to be at least 250 kW or faster chargers to be eligible. And the way we pay these, calculate the funding amount, is $700 per kilowatt at the rated output of these chargers. So if a project has, say, a bunch, 700, if a project has 700, hold on. Okay, if the project has okay, good. These projects have to be built by America, Build America to be eligible. The next measure is the heavy-duty trucks, and these are the these are the battery electric heavy-duty trucks, and funding amount is up to $400,000 per truck. There is a second measure, second part of the truck category is the class 4 and 5, as mentioned earlier. And this measure is actually being administered by SCAG, which is Southern California Association of Governments. They already are running a program, successful program on this class 4 and 5, and we're letting them administer part of our program. Measure 3 are the cargo handling equipment. And there's 2 categories in this that we're funding. One is the yard truck, which is funding at $300,000 per truck, per yard truck. And the second is top handler equipment, and the funding amount is $400,000. For this category, we are only using these 2 categories for now. But if we cannot spend all the funding, we could end up expanding to other categories. Now, the 4th measure is a battery electric locomotive switcher. For this category, the total funding amount per locomotive is $10.6 million. The idea for the higher amount is because this includes infrastructure charging if needed, and also we encourage folks to get an extended warranty and or purchase if they have services for battery service replacement. This will allow them to have some reassurance if they were to go longer project life. This is what we intended them to do. So measures, the first 3 measures, 1, 2, and 3, that's the trucks, charging infrastructure, and cargo handling equipment. They will open on August 15th, which is the end of which is this Friday. They will then close on November 28th. And we expect to begin application review just upon submission right away. The battery electric switcher locomotive program is already open, and that one will close on September 30th, which is a few weeks away. If we don't get enough projects for this, we may keep it open for a little longer. I want to speak about another EPA-funded program called Electric. This one targets class 6 and 7 vehicles. You notice the other program, Invest Clean, is looking at 4, 6, and 8. So this kind of fills all the void in the heavy-duty class between 4, 6, 7, and 8. This is also EPA funded, and the categories that allow for electric are step vans, TRU trucks, and box trucks. The way this program works is that there's a maximum funding amount for each vehicle type, and EPA, this grant only funds 65% of the project cost. But if you don't use up the entire cap funding, say for example the 160, you don't use it all up, the remainder of that can be applied for a charger. Electric opens also this Friday, coming Friday, August 15th, and it closes September 30th. The last program I wanted to mention is the Voucher Incentive Program. That's our sister program for Carl Moyer. And this is open to small fleets, which is now 20 and smaller. This program is being applied by the authorized dealerships on behalf of the small fleets. And the streamlined process where folks can get typically approval within a few weeks. For this year's program, it's Zero-Emission only, and the maximum funding amount is $410,000, but that depends on the usage, so that varies depending on usage. This program will open in Q4 of 2025. And this is the contact information on Invest Clean, or you can contact me. I'm out there for a one-on-one for another couple hours, so you can get my card as well. Thanks.
All right, we have just a few minutes for funding Q&A. If anyone has any questions about any of the funding programs from CARB, CalCap, or the South Coast Air District that you'd like to ask questions about, we can squeeze a few in right now. If not, like we said, those questions can be answered at the one-on-one tables. I do apologize, the South Coast slides are not in your packet. I should have mentioned that before for those of you who went rifling through, but we can provide those to you along with a copy of today's presentation through email contact. So any questions in the room?
Good morning. For HVIP, we know when the HVIP vouchers will be released. They,
Just to clarify, you mean the new funding coming up?
yes.
Look for communication later this week.
And one more, will you guys have like a presentation of the new rules for the HVIP prior to it being released?
Yes, so the IM is coming out very soon before a early fall release. And we'll have some information on what the changes have been coming out very soon.
This is for South Coast. Is there a scrap requirement for the electric program that's opening Friday?
Yes, for both Invest Clean Electric, there will be a scrap requirement. The only exception is the class 4 and 5 that's being run by SCAG. That program only requires 51% of the projects to be scrapped, so there'll be some new expansion or new purchase that'll be allowed for the class 4 and 5.
Any other questions? Last chance for the incentive programs we saw today.
Will the new HVIP voucher amounts reflect the flyer that was handed out, or what's the update for that?
CARB has been reviewing those, and there will be the new voucher amounts will reflect some of the comments they've received and some of the process been going forward. Again, next couple of days, you'll be able to see all of that, and there are a lot of changes have occurred.
All right, so with that, we're going to move on to our next agenda item. Doesn't look like we have any more raised hands. So I'm going to bring up Adil Mahmood to talk about the requirements for state and local governments.
Hi, my name is Adil Mahmood. I work for the Compliance Assistance and Outreach Branch as a staff air pollution specialist. Today, I'm going to talk to you about requirements for state and local government fleets, particularly the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation. So I'll be covering the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation, but I want to make it clear that there are other regulations that you may be subject to, including but not limited to Clean Truck Check, Innovative Clean Transit, Off-Road Diesel Fueled Fleets, or the Zero-Emission Forklift Regulation. And before I get into the main part of the presentation, I just wanted to give a brief update on the waiver status. As you may be aware, California has withdrawn its request for a waiver and authorization for addition of the Advanced Clean Fleets Regulation to its emission control program. At this time, CARB is evaluating next steps. The state and local government fleets portion of the ACF regulation remains unaffected. Because CARB is committed to reducing air pollution to protect public health, we encourage affected industries to continue reducing their emissions and look forward to continued partnership in these efforts. So the Advanced Clean Fleets regulation applies to state and local government agencies. This would be defined as a city, county, public utility, special district, local agency or district, and any department, division, public corporation, or public agency of the state of California. And it would apply to any of these entities that own, operate, or lease at least one vehicle with a gross vehicle weight rating greater than 8,500 pounds. There are some excluded vehicles that would include school buses as defined in the California Vehicle Code, Section 545, emergency vehicles as defined in the California Vehicle Code, Section 165. And though other vehicles may be operated during emergencies, it would just be these specific ones that are excluded from the regulation. Vehicles awaiting sale, military tactical vehicles, historical vehicles, dedicated snow removal vehicles, certain two-engine vehicles, heavy cranes, transit vehicles subject to the Innovative Clean Transit Regulation, and vehicles subject to the Zero-Emission Airport Shuttle Regulation. So the ACF regulation requires state and local government fleets to reduce their emissions by incorporating ZEVs into their fleets. There's two compliance pathways that are available to fleets. The primary default option is the ZEV purchase schedule. This is what all fleets are on initially. It requires that 50% of new vehicle purchases be either ZEVs or NZEVs, which are near zero emission vehicles. That's basically plug-in hybrid vehicles that achieve a minimum all-electric range. The 50% requirement is in effect between 2024 and 2026. Starting in 2027, all purchases must be zero-emission vehicles or near zero-emission vehicles. Please note that agencies in designated counties identified here in red or entities with 10 or fewer vehicles are exempt from purchase requirements until 2027, but they still need to be reporting in truckers. The NZEVs are counted as zero-emission vehicles until through the 2035 model year. So reporting requirements for ACF require fleets to report in the Truck Regulation Upload Compliance and Reporting System, also known as truckers. The initial reporting deadline was April 1st, 2024, and there's an annual deadline of April 1st through 2045. If you're making any changes to your fleet, that needs to be reported in truckers within 30 days of occurrence. That would include any vehicles added to the fleet, any vehicles permanently removed from the fleet, and backup vehicles that exceed the allowable mileage, or if you convert any vehicles to ZEVs. So here's some important considerations to keep in mind regarding the ZEV purchase schedule, or the default pathway that you would be on. So existing internal combustion vehicles in the fleet can be operated indefinitely. There's no useful life retirement requirement in this option. So there's no age or mileage limit that would require you to retire a vehicle. The next thing to keep in mind is the early or excess action credit. ZEVs purchased in excess of purchase requirements count 1-for-1 towards the future combustion powered vehicle purchase. So for example, if in 2026 you wanted to purchase 10 vehicles, your requirement for zero emission vehicles would be 50% of 10. If you were to purchase 7 zero emission vehicles, those 2 extra purchases could be used towards the purchase of a zero emission vehicle beyond 2027. There's also different flexibilities that I'll go over later in the regulation. Some of those flexibilities require vehicles to be at least 13 years old. And compliance is assessed at the end of the year, and it's based on all of the purchases made in a calendar year. And then also non-transit owned vehicles owned by transit agencies subject to the ICT regulation are exempt through January 1st, 2030. That would be the vehicles that support the transit operations. The second compliance pathway that's available to state and local government fleets is the ZEV milestones option. This provides additional flexibility to purchase zero emission vehicles beyond 2027. It provides requirements to purchase vehicles that are based on suitability for electrification. And it's also important to keep in mind that there's no retirement requirement based on time or mileage in this pathway as well. Another difference here is that the annual reporting deadline is February 1st instead of April 1st. Fleets have the option to choose this pathway up until January 1st, 2030, but it is a permanent decision. Once you switch your compliance pathway, you cannot switch back to the ZEV purchase schedule, and you must waive the right to statutory useful life for vehicles, which I'll explain more in the next slides. So here you can see the purchase schedule for the ZEV milestones option. As you can see, vehicles are categorized into 3 groups. Group 1 is box trucks, vans, 2-axle buses, yards trucks, light-duty package delivery vehicles. Group 2 is work trucks, pickup trucks, day cabs, tractors, 3-axle buses, and lastly, you have Group 3, the larger vehicles, sleeper cabs, and Class 8 specialty vehicles. And you can see that the makeup of your fleet in terms of how many ZEVs you have increases as time goes on. So in 2025, your ZEV milestone requirement, or the number of ZEVs you would need to have in your fleet, would be 10% of your Group 1 vehicles. Once you move along to 2042, you can see that all of the vehicles in your fleet would have to be zero-emission vehicles. This slide provides an example of what that would look like in practice. Here we have a fleet with 100 vehicles, 60 of which are in the first group, 20 of which are in the second group, and 20 of which are in Group 3. So as you can see, in 2025, they would have a requirement to have 10% of their Group 1 vehicles be zero emissions, so 6. So their milestone at the bottom, you could see, would be 6. So 6 out of 100 of their vehicles would need to be zero emission vehicles. As we move on to 2029, you can see that 25% of their Group 1 vehicles, or 15 vehicles, or 10% of their Group 2 vehicles, which would be 2, would need to be zero-emission vehicles. So they have a total of 17 zero-emission vehicles that they would need to meet their milestone requirement. And it's important to note that though the different categories are there, that's only used to determine how many total zero-emission vehicles you need in the fleet. In 2029, they would not need 15 from Group 1 and 2 from Group 2. They would just need 17 total. So you can actually have 17 vehicles from Group 1, and that would satisfy your ZEV requirement. And then you can see by 2045, there would need to be 100% zero-emission vehicles. And something important to keep in mind if you do choose this option, is that though you do not need to retire any vehicles based on their time or mileage, you may need to phase them out of your fleet to meet your milestone requirements. So in 2042, when everything is 100%, even if you purchase the vehicle in 2038 and it's relatively new, you would still need to remove it from your fleet by 2042 in order to meet the milestone requirement. So here's some extensions and exemptions to the regulation. Vehicle delivery delay extension for when an order is delayed. ZEV infrastructure delay extension, which provides up to a 5-year extension for infrastructure delays that are out of a vehicle owner's or fleet's control. ZEV purchase exemption is when a vehicle type is not available as a zero-emission vehicle. And the daily use exemption, which provides an exemption when there's no available zero-emission vehicle that can meet your daily usage requirements. Those are the primary extensions and exemptions that we're typically asked about, but there are other ones for different situations, such as mutual aid, non-repairable vehicles, backup vehicles exemptions for those that are not operated more than 1,000 miles per year, intermittent snow removal vehicle extension, and then also the transit agency exemption. There are amendments currently going on to the regulation They're based on Assembly Bill 1594, which directs CARB to amend the ACF regulation to provide additional flexibility to most public agency utilities. If you want to learn more about this, the staff report is available on our website. It has a summary of all the different changes that are going on, along with the actual strikeout language of the regulatory text, which shows the changes that have been made. And comments can be submitted online to our docket. All comments would receive a written response back, and the board hearing date is scheduled for September 25th, with comments being received up until September 15th. And then if you have any questions regarding the ACF regulation, we have the ZEV Fleet email that's available and also our hotline number. I would recommend using the ZEV Fleet email just so you get a written response back. They're usually pretty quick at getting back to people immediately, and I would probably use that first. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd love to take them right now. Oh, also, I'll be in the one-on-one room as well if you have more detailed questions that we can't get to right now.
All right, so we'll move on to the last agenda item of the day, which is covering the in-use off-road diesel fueled fleets regulation, in addition to the zero-emission forklifts regulation right afterwards.
Okay. I'm going to talk about the in-use off-road diesel fuel fleets regulation and the amendments that happened in 2022. So we'll talk about the background of the reg, amendments, and resources. CARB's offered diesel program has been in effect since 2008. It applies to vehicles with diesel engines that are 25 horsepower or more, construction, mining, industrial equipment, even some ride-on lawnmowers as well, some two-engine on-road vehicles and workover rigs. The declining fleet average emissions target, it bans on adding tier 0s through tier 2 vehicles on a specific schedule. It has a reporting and labeling requirement for all vehicles, and it has an idling limitation as well. It does have some dedicated snow removal, part-time ag, and emergency vehicle exemptions for most requirements, but you still have to label. Now, we had amendments in 2022 that were approved by the administrative law effective date October 1st of 2023. So it includes tier phase out, expansion and ban on adding vehicles, renewable diesel usage, contracting requirements, voluntary zero emission flexibility, and other amendments. For offered engine standards, the engine tier correlates with the emission standard established by the US EPA and CARB as well. CARB recommends the fleet check the emission control label on the engine for the engine tier. So dirtiest tier 0, cleanest tier for final. This is the tier phase out schedule as it currently is based on the size of the fleet. So if you're a large fleet, in 2024, you were supposed to get rid of all tier 0 equipment that was in your fleet, unless you put in permanent low use and you can keep it for a few more years. Then it goes to tier 1, tier 2 on the specific years, and then the medium schedule, small schedule, and the ultra small schedule. Tier 0 includes model years also of 1994 or older on road for the 2-engine vehicles. Tier 1 includes model year 1999 and older for on-road vehicles, and then tier 2 includes model year 2003 and older. This is specifically for the 2-engine vehicles that are covered under the regulation. There's also an expansion and ban on adding vehicles. and that's this schedule as well. So any large and medium fleets at the moment can only add Tier 4 final to their fleets, and small fleets can still add Tier 4I. The optional ultra small fleet will have Tier 4I for a little bit longer, but anything that you're adding to your fleet, if you're large or medium, it has to be Tier 4 final. Dedicated snow removals, beginning on January 1st, 2024, fleets will also be prohibited from adding a vehicle with a Tier 0 engine as dedicated snow removal, vehicles used for emergency operations, Job Corps vehicles, and then Tier 4I phase out also includes model year of 2006 and older vehicles of the on-road 2-engine vehicles. There is a renewable diesel requirement. Renewable diesel is a transportation fuel produced from non-petroleum renewable sources. It's fleet required to use RD starting on January 1st, 2024. So at this point, if a fleet is not 100% Tier 4 final, it has to be using renewable diesel. Fleets must attest that they are compliant and keep records to demonstrate the compliance. And there are a few limited exemptions. So the first exemption is inability to procure. You will have to prove that, and you will have to keep records of that. The next one is 100% Tier 4 final or model year 2010 or newer for on-road 2-engine vehicles or zero emission. So if your fleet is 100% Tier 4, then you don't have to use renewable diesel. Designated captive attainment area fleets or vehicles while operating in county listed under the captive attainment definition. And then cold temperature, cold climate, and intermittent low temperature, there's also an exemption for that. There is a form that you have to fill out. There are things that you have to prove and submit, but as long as you go through the process, then you will be able to have that. We also added contracting and prime contractor requirements. So for contracting, it just applies to all contracting entities, public work awarding bodies, and prime contractors. Obtain a valid certificate of reported compliance for any fleet hire and their listed contractors as well. Shall not enter into a contract with a fleet that does not have a valid certificate. And there are exemptions for emergency operations, which you have to keep records for, and attestations from the fleet. Now, there's also requirements just for prime contractors. Report observed non-compliance to CARB, such as unlabeled vehicles or fleets without a valid certificate. Disclose ownership information to CARB at the job site. Post signage with off-road diesel program information at job sites. And the signage is available to download from our webpage. That way you just have to print it and post it. There's voluntary zero emission flexibilities. So this doesn't mean it's mandatory. I think there's a lot of misinformation saying that for off-road you have to go zero emission. No, this is voluntary. For each zero emission vehicle adopted, the fleet may continue to operate a Tier 1 or Tier 2 vehicle for 2 additional years beyond the phase-out schedule. So it's just to prolong a little bit of the life of your current vehicle. It must perform work of a diesel equivalent, must be similar max power rating as the internal combustion engine vehicle, and must report vehicle information to CARB. There's also an alternate compliance pathway through zero emission technology application called ZETA. ZETA, it's a whole process. And so it is for fleets that want to go above and beyond. They have to be compliant at the time of the submittal. It must be submitted 4 months before the prior next compliance date. You have to also turn over to ZE 15% of your fleet by 2030. 50% of your fleet by 2035. And then this ZETA must be included the vehicle turnover, the Z acquisition, the list of milestone, and estimated completion date. Again, not mandatory. Annual ZETA updates. All milestones have to be completed. You also have to, if there's some progress is shown, but not quite there, we can adjust milestones as we go. But if there's no progress, then you can get revoked. And at that point, if it's denied or revoked, you comply with the tier phase out and fleet average requirements immediately. Changes to the low usage. So year by year low use expire on January 1st, 2024. So at this point, anything that is in year-by-year low use will have to be changed into permanent low use or brought back into the fleet, depending on what the tier of that vehicle is. New reporting requirements for permanent low use: it has to be date stamp photo that you have to keep in your files. It has to replace altered hour meter. You have to notify CARB if your hour meter broke, and you also have to replace it. There's a process for that. There will also be a 3-year rolling average for permanent low use. In the previews before the amendments, there was no 3-year rolling average for permanent low use. But since year-by-year low use is gone, now permanent low use will have a 3-year rolling average. This means an average of less than 600 hours of use over 3 consecutive years. Low use tier 0 vehicles will have to be phased out by January 1st, 2036. So as in the phase out schedule, let's say you had tier 0 equipment and you decided to put in permanent low use so that you didn't have to take it out your fleet. And January 1st, 2036, that permanent low use tier 0 equipment will have to go. Other amendments. Emission control label. If a fleet observes that the emission control label is no longer visible or readable, a new replaced label must be requested. Carryover back credits. Provide additional flexibility by allowing fleets to generate credits after the final target date. And newly reported fleets must meet new fleet requirements, which means that they have to be in compliance as soon as they enter California. Here's some funding resources, which I think they probably talked about earlier in the session. So we have CORE for Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Projects. That's for going zero emission. And we have CARB, and that will be for anything else. We also have local air district. So if you want funding, you will probably want to contact your local air district first. These are program resources for off-road. That's our main webpage. The contractor side poster is there as well. So if you want to print that and post it, it's available to you. And then there's a certificate validation page. So if you have a fleet that you're trying to corroborate that they have a compliance certificate, you can enter the doors ID and it will tell you whether the fleet is in compliance or not. And these are contact information. So we have the off-road homepage, off-road zone, our hotline, which is open from 8 to 4. And we also have my coworker's email. Now, do you have any questions about off-road diesel? Okay. All right, let's move on to zero-emission forklift then. It was adopted at board hearing on June 27, 2024, approved by the Office of Administrative Law on September 17, 2024. The California Air Resources Board has not yet sought authorization from the EPA to enforce the zero-emission forklift program. CARB will not put a notice out when US EPA grants. CARB will put a notice out when US EPA grants such authorization. CARB is not currently enforcing the ZEF program for private entities and will not do so without a US EPA authorization. It does apply, though, to local government and state agencies. CARB staff encourages all manufacturers and fleets to voluntarily report and comply in the meantime. Zero-emission forklift developments. Zero-emission forklift has been available for decades and are widely used in applications such as warehouses and distribution centers. Previously powered by flooded lead-acid battery technology, which meant 8-hour shifts, 8-hour charge, 8-hour cool down, regular maintenance required. It continues to advance rapidly with new battery technology like lithium-ion base batteries and fuel cell technology as well. Lithium-ion provides solutions to issues with lead-acid batteries like charge more quickly, no cool down period, and less maintenance. Benefits of switching to zero-emission forklifts. Currently, there's a wide variety of ZIF in classes and lift capacities commercially available. Operators that switch to ZEF expect cost savings of approximately $30,000 per forklift due to fuel savings. Net cost savings over the ZEF equipment lifetime due to lower energy cost and lower maintenance cost. Zero-emission forklift availability. Class 4 and Class 5 LSI forklifts are well suited to transition to ZE technology. An online search conducted by staff of ZEF offering identified about 400 models of ZEFs, more than 130 of which with lift capacity greater than 12,000 pounds. There's also a link provided of available ZEF offerings. There's an estimated health benefit and cost savings of ZEF adoption in California. Significant reductions in adverse health cases across all ages in the state if ZE forklifts were adopted at a rate comparable to that expected under the zero-emission forklift program. California could see cumulative between 2026 and 2043, about $7.5 billion in health benefit savings, 0.25 to 1 billion in social cost of carbon savings, and 2.7 billion in net fleet cost savings. Here are some of the zero-emission forklift funding for, again, specifically for zero-emission, CARB Moyer for LSI, and then always check with your local air district as well. If you want to learn more, there's our website, there our email if you have any questions, and our hotline as well. Any questions? The federal budget cuts affecting core funding. I mean, core has a different amount of money allocated to the program each year. So it might affect them, not 100% sure because I don't work in the program, but there is a possibility, but at least core is not oversubscribed. So I think there is a big possibility that if you apply, you will get funding.
Any other questions for zero emission forklift or the off-road diesel regulations? Doesn't look like it. So with that, we can wrap up. And we'd like to thank you all for coming today and helping make this a successful event. We do have staff in the other room. It's not 1 o'clock yet. So if you have any last minute questions, feel free to stop by the one-on-one room and see if the staff that you need to meet with are available. Surveys, you can fill them out and drop them off at the table right outside the door, or you can use the QR code to fill them out online if you would prefer to do it that way. We do appreciate your feedback, good, bad, or otherwise, to help us make these events progressively more and more successful. So thank you all for participating. We really appreciate you coming. And staff will be around for a little while longer if you do have any additional questions. But that concludes the presentation portion of the event. Thank you so much.